Let's go Browns! Cleveland just made one of the most intriguing roster moves of the offseason, and Browns fans everywhere are full of questions. Is this the bold strategy we've been hoping for? Or are we simply accumulating names with more baggage than impact? Let's break it down, because what's happening could very well reshape the roster in unexpected ways. It all starts with 3 incredible additions to the Browns practice squad. And when I say incredible, I mean intriguing, controversial, and potentially genius, all at the same time. But before we continue, please click like if you've been a Cleveland Browns fan for over 20 years. It's great for fans of all ages. There are people here who played in the first game. If possible, comment like this: "Let's go, Browns. Let's go to the Super Bowl." Well, let's go. First up, Malachi Corley. Yes, that Malachi Corley, the former Jets wide receiver who made headlines not for his stats, but for his boldness. The man famously told Davante Adams he wouldn't give up jersey number 17 unless he was paid $120,000 after Adams offered $20K. That's not a typo. 120 grand. The league eventually stepped in and sided with Adams, and Corley ended up being cut after managing just 3 career catches in New York. And just to add to the lore, he pulled off one of the most infamous near touchdowns in recent memory, dropping the ball just inches before crossing the goal line against the Texans. No touchdown, just embarrassment. But here's the twist. Corley was a monster in college. At Western Kentucky, he racked up 29 career touchdowns and led the FBS in yards after catch over the past 3 seasons with a ridiculous 2,700 YAC yards. Nicknamed the YAC King, he forced 77 missed tackles, second best in the nation, and drew comparisons to Deebo Samuel. That's right, some scouts thought he could be a versatile hybrid, just like Deebo. Given that the Browns are currently carrying only 2 running backs on the active roster, don't be surprised if Cleveland experiments with Corley in a dual-role capacity, lining up as a wide receiver and even taking some handoffs. He's got the toughness, the vision, and the track record in college to pull it off. The question is, does his attitude match his skill set at the NFL level? Then there's Bailey Zapp. Browns fans, this one raised eyebrows across the board. We remember Zapp. He was in Cleveland last season for that meaningless Week 18 game where he started and threw 2 interceptions. Not exactly a performance to remember. And now he's back, joining a QB room that already includes Joe Flacco as the clear starter, Dylan Gabriel as the backup, and Shader Sanders as QB3. So where does Zapp fit? That's the million-dollar question. If the Browns are planning for depth, okay, sure. But why not just keep Tyler Huntley? Fans were already pushing for Huntley to remain on the roster. He had the experience, the mobility, and he's back with the Ravens now, so it's not like he vanished. But instead, we're rolling with Zapp, who hasn't shown much upside since entering the league. It feels like a placeholder move at best. And if he ends up starting ahead of Sanders or Gabriel due to injury or some bizarre QB carousel, the backlash would be brutal. Twitter would explode. And speaking of confusing moves, say hello to Cole Strange, another former Patriot, another former first-rounder, drafted by Bill Belichick in 2022. And since then, let's just say the results have been underwhelming. His blocking grades, both in pass protection and the run game, have been consistently low. Most recently, he got torched in a preseason red zone snap for the Patriots. It was the kind of play that gets replayed in film rooms as an example of what not to do. Now, to be fair, Cleveland has had health issues on the offensive line, so taking a flyer on someone like Strange for the practice squad might make some sense. But the reality is he hasn't lived up to his draft pedigree, and there's no indication that he's ready to flip the switch and become a difference maker. All 3 moves stir the pot in different ways. Corley is a high-risk, high-reward project. Zapp feels like a confusing redundancy. Strange is a reclamation shot in the dark. But here's where it gets more encouraging. The Browns also brought back 9 players who'd been waived, and this is where fans can breathe a little easier. Names like Sal Cannella, who had a standout preseason and built chemistry with both Gabriel and Sanders, are back in the fold. Caden Davis, who flashed speed and end-zone potential, is another key returnee. And perhaps most exciting for those following the ground game, Amari Marshall and Tavon Williams are sticking around. Marshall, despite modest yards per carry, showed promise with physical runs and blocking. And Williams adds much-needed depth to a thin backfield. The tight end room sees Brendan Bates returning too. He was waived but re-signed to the practice squad. Not to be overlooked. Injuries happen, and having someone familiar with the offense ready to step in is invaluable. On defense, Cleveland retained several intriguing names. Julian Okwara is back. He was responsible for a huge hit on Dorian Thompson-Robinson in preseason that led directly to a KJ Henry pick six. That's the kind of impact play you remember. Marion James also stays with the team, providing vital depth at corner, a position that might be in serious trouble if Denzel Ward's health becomes an issue again. Newsome is solid, but with Martin Emerson out for the year, the CB3 spot is wide open. So now, let's talk about the two players Cleveland snagged via waivers, thanks to their high priority position. This might be the most exciting part of the entire shakeup. First up, Raheem "Rocket" Sanders, a bruising, 6-foot, 230-pound back who turned heads during Chargers preseason. He's the kind of punishing runner who can wear defenses down in the fourth quarter. With only two backs on the current 53-man, Sanders could get his shot sooner rather than later. And Browns fans, you're going to love this. Chargers Twitter absolutely melted down after the waiver news broke. That's a good sign. And finally, Jarek Bernard-Converse, a corner from LSU who was one of the Jets' preseason stars. He had an elite 92.3 coverage grade according to Pro Football Focus and a strong overall grade of 82.9. At 6 feet 1 inch and 205 pounds, he brings size and stickiness to a Browns secondary that desperately needs insurance. With Ward's status always uncertain and Emerson out, Bernard-Converse could end up being more than just a name on the practice squad. He might be the guy we're leaning on by midseason. And let's not overlook just how devastated Chargers and Jets fans were when news broke that Sanders and Bernard-Converse were headed to Cleveland. If you haven't checked Twitter yet, do yourself a favor, scroll through the reactions. Fans were furious. Biggest mistake we made all offseason, one Chargers fan tweeted. Can't believe we let Rocket go, said another. Jets fans weren't any calmer. Bernard-Converse was a lock. One post shouted. That kind of public meltdown isn't just entertaining, it's validating. When opposing fan bases panic because you claimed one of their guys, it usually means you made the right move. And that's exactly what this feels like for the Browns, calculated, aggressive, and forward-thinking. But there's more at play here than just personnel shuffles. These moves tell us something important about how Cleveland is thinking. The coaching staff isn't just preparing for the first few weeks of the season, they're preparing for attrition, for injuries, for fatigue down the stretch. They're stashing players who may not contribute tomorrow, but who might become critical in November or December. That's why guys like Sal Cannella and Julian Okwara are so important. Cannella might not make headlines today, but if an injury hits the tight end room, he could be the next man up. And Okwara, he's already shown he can deliver game-changing hits. And don't underestimate the value of that chemistry that was built during preseason. Guys like Gabriel, Sanders, Davis, they've played real snaps together. They've built rhythm. They've learned to trust one another in high-pressure moments. That can't be replicated overnight. If the Browns are forced to lean on their practice squad depth later in the year, they won't be tossing out strangers. They'll be elevating players who've already been battle-tested together. Let's also go back to Amari Marshall for a moment. This is a guy who, despite flying under the radar during preseason, quietly put together a really solid body of work. His rushing totals might not pop, but his physicality stood out. He finishes runs. He blocks with intent. He doesn't shy away from contact. And in a backfield that's razor thin, having someone like that available is a big deal. It's not just about speed and flash. It's about toughness, durability, and reliability. The kind of back who can step in on a cold December afternoon and grind out hard yards when it counts. The same goes for Tavon Williams. His reps were limited, but the flashes were there. The agility, the awareness, the willingness to stick his nose into tight windows, all traits that could earn him a call-up if Cleveland suffers another injury wave like we've seen in the past. On the defensive side, the Browns continuing to invest in depth speaks volumes. We know this team has dealt with injuries across the secondary year after year, so adding